All right, what's up?
Hey,
Sorry.
are we on right now?
Yeah, we're on right now.
Okay, good, good. So do you want me to just basically run down what happened?
Yeah. The floor is yours.
Okay, so basically Caleb Mopham put out a tweet earlier saying that third worldists support imperialism. Well, that's an outright lie. The the entire cornerstone of everything that we are is anti-imperialism, putting anti-imperialism before everything else. So,
Um,
I mean, whether or not you want to agree with the ideology or not, to say that we support imperialism is a falsehood.
um, so, uh, I didn't see Caleb's tweet, but hold on, give me a second. I gotta complete something on my desk. Sorry about that. All right. So I didn't see his tweet specifically, but I think as materialists, we do have to distinguish what an ideologist says their ideology is and the real content of what they're saying at the level of the practical implications, the material implications. And the material implications are not about what it would mean for their ideas to be realized on the terms of the ideas, but what it would mean for their ideas to be realized um, in actual reality. Like, which isn't something that's can be controlled by the ideas themselves, if that makes sense. Like, for example,
No,
one can
no,
say that they are an anti-imperialist, but because of the specific way they're positioning themselves in relation to real existing imperialism, they can end up serving imperialism.
okay, so how is it you think I'm serving imperialism?
Um, so I don't know specifically how you are doing it, but just for the hypothetical sake, um, I would say that if you're addressing an audience and basically telling them that they have to hate America and oppose America and patriotism and things like that,
They don't
the
have to hate America. It'd be beneficial, but they don't necessarily have to.
well
But for the
that
sake of but for the sake of argument, let's say have to.
yeah well that I mean, that's like a consequence of Marxism or Marxism Leninism. The net effect is the support of imperialism because you're basically nullifying their ability to pose a threat to American imperialism whatsoever.
Exactly how is being against America and hating America supporting American imperialism?
Well, because you're making it impossible in that way for people to practically oppose the real existing reality of American imperialism, not the one in
And
your.
how does that happen?
Well, it happens because the only way to defeat American imperialism, as far as Americans are concerned, is to win the American masses.
Not necessarily. You
Well,
could for the most part. I mean, even if you did hate America, yeah, that would be one way to do it. Anti-war activism, and pretty much during the Vietnam War, there was burning the American flag.
yeah,
There
but that
was
was
a
not an
great deal.
effective way of that. The Vietnam War was prolonged for so many years, even at the expense of the anti-war movement. And part of that was because the anti-war movement wasn't drawing from the material basis of American statehood, which would eventually become the kind of Reagan Democrats, the kind of working class that supported Nixon and later Reagan. If you
Okay,
could
what
tap
material
into those
positions?
people and accentuate the contradiction between them and the American deep state and military industrial complex, which does exist, you would be opposing imperialism more effectively than any kind of sloganeering or burning or symbolic gestures could possibly. Example of this is the fact that whether we like it or not, I mean, this is not our preferred, it's not preferable to us, but let's look at the past 20 years. The
Okay, so wait,
most effective threat.
I just want to get something
Yeah.
straight. You're going to fight the military industrial complex by loving your country
Yeah?
when that is what it is.
No, this is an undialectical view because,
No,
yeah,
no. America was born of slavery, racism, genocide, and land theft. All of those things are what made America what it is. Without those things, America does not exist.
but those things preceded America.
No, those are the basis for America.
But those preceded the American state by
Okay? They are
centuries.
the basis of America. You're saying slavery existed before America?
Well, if
Or
it
it
was the
didn't exist
basis
at
of
the same time?
America, if it was the basis of the United States, why was a war in need of being waged to give rise to the United States?
Because it was a concept of the bourgeois ideas of property ownership over the remaining feudal notions that were still held by the British territories.
For example, like what do you mean as an example?
Okay, for example, you say on Constitution about property and all of that, and the removal of religion from the government. Those are all anti-feudal notions. Before that, many of the feudal notions were you had to be born into aristocracy to own any significant amount of land. You had to be born into aristocracy to do business, etc. The whole point of the Constitution was literally, without saying it, but if you look at the substance of it, it's pro-capitalism.
But the English Civil War had already overturned the feudal order proper, both in England and
For the most part.
So I don't see how that.
That's what the Constitution is literally a pro-capitalist document.
But America was never feudal proper. It was always determined by
No, I know.
yeomen who came from Europe and owned small plots, and they became. Yeah, there was no serfs and there was no things like that.
I never said there was.
Yeah.
The point of the Constitution is the opposite of that. That was not formalized until there was the Constitution. I mean, even then, you can't say there is an America without land theft.
Okay.
You had to kill off the natives and take their land.
But that was something that, again, was not essential to the founding of the United States or the Republic.
Yes, it physically could not exist without it.
No, but you're not listening to what I'm saying, is that was happening anyway. That was going to happen regardless of whether there was...
Are you literally trying to separate native genocide and land theft from America?
No, I argued a week ago that without slavery, there would be no United States, so I agree with that. What I'm trying to say is that that wouldn't have...
No, it just seems like you just agreed with
me. But the U.S. was not the decisive factor in determining whether there was going to be those things, is what I'm trying to say. Those things existed before and would have existed anyway.
You're saying there would have been an America even if the land theft wouldn't have happened?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there would have been land theft and there would have been slavery even if there was no republic.
Okay. So the fact that they are there.
So in what way did the republic make a difference is the question.
Well, literally the U.S. Army slaughtered Native Americans.
Did the British not do that?
Particularly the US Calvary.
Did the British not do that?
And?
So...
America isn't England. It's America.
Okay, but you're not listening to what I'm saying. You're not recognizing the decisive significance of the American Republic.
You're taking a concept of America that doesn't materially exist and saying,
no, I'm not.
Well, it could have existed.
I'm just telling you where America made a difference in history. And the difference wasn't that it introduced all of those things. Those things existed anyway. Those were there. The only difference as far as the American Republic is concerned...
And the American Republic does not exist without them.
How do you know?
Well, you see, it physically would have nowhere to be if it wasn't there.
Explain. How is that?
You know where America physically exists, Turtle Island, right?
Okay.
Had the native population not been forcibly removed,
okay, right now in 2021,
there would be no place for America.
Okay, but we're speaking now in 2021. Why is it...
Yeah. As long as we remove the historical context of the creation of America and everything it's done.
But we're living here and now, so I'm asking you...
Okay, so as long as we completely remove the material basis for the existence of America and everything it's done.
I'm not denying again, if it wasn't for slavery,
you're not
there would
denying
be no
it,
United
but
States.
then you're turning around and saying, yeah, well, it's a different time now. This is the
I'm asking you,
what
what does it mean in 2021 now?
Oh, so natives aren't marginalized and still have their land stolen.
They are, but for example, why would it be
I just
incompatible
answered you.
with the continuity of the Republic and even the Constitution, for example, for land reparations to be given to Native Americans and for their rights to be their treaties to be upholded, and for them to be given more land and more rights and all these
I think you need to do a little bit of
self-determination?
research. I
Why
think you
would
need to do
that
a little
not
bit
be
of
possible as long as the Republic stands?
because the Republic would still be on their land, even if you quote gave them reparations, which, by the way, they don't want. They
So
want
what do
their
they
land
want?
back. So basically, what you're saying, if the Israelis throw a scrap of land to the Palestinians, then it's over.
No, the decisive significance in regards to the Israel-Palestine conflict is the fact that the Palestinians are still contesting the land in the West Bank, in Gaza, and
And Native
elsewhere.
Americans are still doing the same thing.
Right, but the difference is that the Native American population is what percentage of the United States?
Oh, because they were basically slaughtered off, their claim is what, not as valid as Palestinians?
It would be proportionate to the amount of space they need as a people.
Oh, so basically, there's not a lot of Native Americans left, so they don't get their land back.
Do you know what Native Americans are demanding and what they want?
Yes,
What do they want?
they want their land back. And
So
this
they,
comes
they
from
want the entirety of the
well,
United States only as their property.
however, and I can tell you this comes from Comrade Number 3, the political leader of the Navajo Nation, and this is exactly what he told me. Who is a socialist, by the way.
Okay, so what is his name?
His name is Comrade Number 3. I don't know his real name.
Comrade number 3, and he represents the Navajo people.
Yes, actually, I have a thing of him on my channel, him speaking about decolonization, etc.
And he wants all of America for the Navajo?
There is a question of what it is they want to do, and it's their decision to make, not the colonizers.
I'm trying to Google him and I can't find him. So
you're not going to find anything on a Google. He doesn't have a social media.
So how do you know he represents the whole Navajo people and he's their actual representative?
Because I've talked to him and I've talked to his people.
You've talked to every Navajo, or you've talked to?
No, I've not talked to every.
Because there are official organizations that represent.
Okay, so basically, you're just going to claim he doesn't exist.
I don't know who you're talking. I don't know who you're talking about.
Okay,
I'm saying there are official representatives of indigenous organizations and people and reservations and tribes. There are official tribes that are registered and recognized by the U.S. government. And
well, if it's recognized by the U.S. government, because that's someone you can trust.
Well, who are you going to trust then? Otherwise, you're just dealing with individuals.
The people themselves.
Which people?
The Native Americans themselves.
But that's the issue with individuals, right? Many individuals can say, well, we support Trump. Many individuals can say, well, we support this, we support that. So
I don't support the ones that.
How do you know who speaks for all indigenous people?
No one person does. But that is the general consensus: is yes, they do want their land back. And even now, we've gone.
Okay, but hold on. What is their land? What land do they want back? Do they want
western half of the world?
They want the entirety of seaboard to seaboard United States.
Some of them, yes.
To do what with? Historically speaking, they didn't have all of that land. They didn't even use all of that land. That doesn't even make any sense.
Funny,
I have studied indigenous.
That is an Ayn Rand. That's literally what Ayn Rand
said.
They
literally did not. I'm not saying they didn't exploit the land. I'm saying that they literally had no. It wasn't a sacred grounds for that. They didn't even operate in all of America, seaboard to seaboard. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's funny because I've had Zionists say the same thing about Palestine.
Okay.
Well, they weren't using all of it, so therefore the colonization is okay. Well, we're not saying it's okay, but we're saying that they didn't use all of it. But we're not saying it's okay.
That doesn't make any sense, okay? I'm trying to tell you
argument,
that...
not mine.
Okay, historically speaking, you can actually map historical and ancestral lands of various different indigenous tribes.
So therefore, it's okay to steal some of the land?
No, that happened in the past.
Oh, so it happened a long time ago, therefore it doesn't count.
Well, what would it mean for it to count?
The land was stolen.
Okay,
And
well,
no amount of saying
since
long time ago
since
or
we're
different
talking about the past and the weight of the past matters so much, where do you currently live?
I currently live in Canada.
So why don't you pack your bags, give your land to indigenous people,
Okay,
your
first of
home?
all, with what money? And by the way, I don't own any land.
You don't have a house?
I no. I live in a rented apartment.
So start giving your or share your apartment at least with homeless indigenous people.
Oh, so very right-wing argument. You
Why?
think that on an individual level that I can make any kind of a difference in that way?
But I'm
Well,
asking you, what are
if
the
you like
contemporary
communism so much, why
So
don't
what?
move to
The
Cuba?
past doesn't count.
Move to Cuba.
So the
Well,
past
I'm saying
doesn't
it does
count.
count. I'm saying it does count.
So if
does
it
matter.
counts, stop occupying their land now and leave.
Well, if it counts, if you like socialism, move to Cuba.
But it's okay. What are well, for me, the implications of socialism are building socialism here. So why would I move to Cuba? If the implications
already
of
there. Why don't you just
socialism
go?
for you are giving all of the native people their
It's a
land back,
nonsense argument.
but the implications of socialism
No,
to you are giving
It's
all
a
indigenous people the
nonsense
land back.
argument.
So what are the
I
implications?
can't give their land back. I don't have any land.
You can
I
give your
can't give back something I don't.
you can
I
give
don't own the apartment.
you can give your belongings and you can give your
My belongings. They don't want my belongings. They want their land. I don't have any land to
but
give
you're
back.
but you are physically living
Yes,
in an
I am
apartment on stolen
physically
land.
yes.
You're living on
And
stolen
I
land.
believe that this land.
So
should
do
be
you
given
remember
back.
the clip of that settler who was saying if it's not going to be me who takes the house, it's going to be someone else? That's kind of how you're being right now. Yeah.
No. That's not the argument I'm making. I never said
It
that.
sounds a lot like the argument you're making.
No, absolutely not. Because I don't deny that I'm on occupied land, and it should change.
How is that going to change?
This is nonsense. It's like saying if you don't like a capitalist economy, then leave.
No,
It's
because
the same argument.
no, I could easily respond to that.
It's a nonsense argument.
It's not the same argument. I could easily respond to that
where I am,
argument by
the
saying
land
that.
is still stolen.
But
You are
if
looking
Marxists
for
say that the
mental
basis of
gymnastics
socialism
in
is
order
in
to get
capitalism, it's
out
not
of
the
that.
same argument because
You are
socialism
looking
comes
for
from
mental
capitalism.
gymnastics to get out of the fact that you are on stolen land just as I am. And it should be returned to those people. And they can decide.
I don't believe that's the contemporary implication, is that they want all of America. You're really raising the bar.
No.
I think you're
Some
really
do.
trivializing
Some
the
do.
ongoing injustices against indigenous people
You're
by
lying about
raising
what
the
I'm
bar
saying.
so high.
You're lying about what I'm saying.
Well, you
I never
realize,
said all land.
have you actually studied what indigenous people do want?
Yes.
Because they don't just want all of America.
They tell me, like I said, some do want all back. I never said they all want
I know indigenous people who are fascists.
Yeah, and I know indigenous people too.
But
Stop
I know
putting
some
words
who
in my
are
mouth.
fascists and who love Mussolini and Hitler.
Stop putting words in my mouth because I didn't say that.
No, I'm saying I know
didn't say
indigenous
all land
people
back.
who like Mussolini and Hitler. Do they represent all indigenous people?
No.
Well, you can only go off of the
Okay,
actual
so-
tribal leaders and what they are saying.
Literally, okay, so some people could stay, some people can go. Let's say it's up to them. They even said that they'd be willing to give some land to descendants of slaves, etc. That's not the question here. The question
That's
is
really
whether or not the
convenient.
land is stolen.
Hold on, that's really convenient that like
That's their
their
decision to make.
view is everything that conforms to white Western left
It's
wokeness.
their land.
Do you
They
know
can
that there's
make
historic? Do you know that there's a history of conflict between descendants of slaves and indigenous people? Do you know that indigenous people had slaves?
And it's still their land, and they can still make the decision whether or not they want anyone to be able to stay on.
But it just seems like it's so convenient that what they apparently
it's
want
not convenient.
is
It's
just
their
what
land.
white Western leftists want.
No. It's not what white left or Western leftists
It
want.
is.
White Western leftists want to erase decolonization entirely.
Then why was the response to me, Caleb, and Jackson overwhelmingly negative by the leftists?
Because your position was bullshit.
So you're contradicting yourself.
No, it's the patriotism that was bullshit.
Okay, but you're still
Decolonization.
contradicting.
I didn't see anybody getting mad over decolonization.
That's exactly
the
what they
man
were getting
being
mad
mad
over.
over the-
That's exactly what they were getting mad over. Are you
Yeah,
kidding?
because you can't say you stand for decolonization while supporting the state or supporting the country that is the colonizer.
Do you know
That doesn't make any
do you know the
sense.
origins of this term decolonization within academia?
Okay, now you're going to try to play semantics.
Well, I'm just
America
telling you, it's a
exists
complete
as an
white
empire
Western left,
on
white guilt
native land.
cope.
Land that was stolen, and you are coming up with justifications for it continuing to be that way. Oh, we'll make treaties, give them treaties that they can't actually turn down. I mean, you do know the history of land treaties with Native
I think
Americans,
you
right?
can actually address their real demands and claims on a fair basis that addresses the needs of everyone who lives here in America.
I think that they would largely disagree. Okay, let's say you're right. Exactly what about America does that essentially change? America's on stolen land. If they agree to give that land to America, that wouldn't even be America anymore.
Is there land, in your view, that is
What
not
is
stolen in history? What's an example of non-stolen land?
the other half of the world?
None of
I'm
that land
talking
was conquered or
Canada, the United
stolen.
States, Australia. That's who I'm talking about.
So
And
no other
and,
land was
and
taken
Israel.
forcefully in the world?
I didn't say that. I don't live
So
there.
should that land
I'm
be
not a
given
part of
back
them.
as well?
Maybe, depending on the case. I don't know. I'm not talking about them.
So
I am talking about the Western world.
why?
Because the Western world is the problem. The Western world is the imperialist core.
I agree that it's imperialist.
Why are you trying to change the subject to some other country?
Because I don't know why. I don't know what you mean by like we live on stolen land. Well, who doesn't?
What do you mean? Britons live in Britain. Russians live in Russia.
So you don't think any British land is stolen from indigenous people in the British Isles, like the Normans, conquests, and those kinds of things?
Depending on the area.
So should that land be given back? Would that be your advice?
Maybe I would have to research those individual things. But I am not talking about those ones. I can't.
I think the point I'm trying
comment
to
on them.
make. The point I'm trying to make.
All land is stolen.
I'll throw you a
therefore
bone.
stolen
I'll throw you a
American
bone.
land is okay.
No, I'll throw you a bone, even though, it's debate-wise, it's not a good idea, but I'll just do it to be fair. I agree that there is something unique compared to the rest of the world about the Western colonialism in the New World. I agree. It's not just like, the historical forms of conquest and subjugation that existed elsewhere. So I'll just throw you that bone. But the underlying point I'm trying to give to you is that the only way to reconcile the sins of the past is to live and address their implications in the present. You're not going to rectify the so-called injustices of the past because all of history is written in blood, slaughter, war, rape, and injustice, and there's no way for you to reverse that or just make it so that wrong can be righted. You have to come to terms with the fact that this was an objective part of the development of history, and
yeah, that was my point. That is an objective part of what is America, where it came
I agree,
from,
but so what are but you're saying the implications of that is that we can just reverse that and give all indigenous people all the land instead of addressing the needs of the people who live here now.
You don't need to address or the people living here do not need to address it. They need to give.
And one of the differences with the Israel-Palestine conflict too is that conflict is not based on the humanitarian good graces of the colonizers. It's an actual, real war that's going on. So if the Palestinians win...
Are you not aware what's going on reservations and the history?
Well, for example, I would never appeal to Western morality in defense of the Palestinians. I would say the Palestinians and their allies will be victorious, right? Because I do believe that. Whether I like that or not, that's just my assessment and my belief. I cannot make the same assessment when it comes to what if Native Americans are waging a protracted people's war against the federal government, which they're not. It's not going to fare well for them.
So therefore, it's okay to just continue the way it is.
You don't have a materialist view.
Well, if they're not fighting for it, then
you don't have a materialist view of morality. What do you mean okay? Okay according to whom and by whose actions and
morality isn't even necessarily material.
What?
It's not even an objective thing.
But you're appealing to morality.
No, I'm saying how is one valid and not the other?
Well, valid is a moral category.
No, there is no addressing their concerns. They make the decision because it is their land.
So let them.
They address our concerns.
So they'll do it then.
Okay, and that's.
I'm not going to get in their way.
To do with the
I just don't see them
No,
taking.
Not you
But I don't
personally.
see them conquering all of America. I just don't see it happening.
Who said anything about conquering?
Well, then how are they going to get all of America? If not by...
I didn't say that they would necessarily would. I said it should be given to them to make
should,
that
which is about morality.
Okay, so you're saying that because they can't kick our ass and take it back, then it's okay.
That's materialism for you.
So you're saying because they literally can't, so you literally making might is right.
That's materialism for you. And by the way,
So
I'm not saying
you
that.
literally are. Yes, you are. You just did.
Well, that's how you're interpreting
it.
it.
They can't kill us and take it back. That literally is might makes right.
Whether I'm saying whatever morality you have has to be make peace with that objective material fact. I'm not saying that makes it okay.
Your
but whatever is or isn't okay, you have to make peace with the material circumstances and the reality.
Yeah, and the reality is the land is stolen, and all you're really saying is that they can't kill us and take it back, so it's ours.
The land, who's ours?
Really is all you're saying.
Who's ours?
What do you mean?
Who's ours? I mean, are you saying what do I think should happen if I could snap my fingers and have whatever reality I want? Or am I talking about what is the reality and how should Marxists and materialists respond accordingly?
So you don't think that you should fight to have the land given back to them?
Okay, what does it mean to fight for that? Does it mean just virtue signaling to no avail? Because that's what I think you think it means.
No, that's what first worldists do.
So how do you do it then?
Well, first of all, theoretically, if you felt it was necessary, not that I'm necessarily advocating it, you would essentially destroy American society, overthrow the government, or something like that. I am not necessarily endorsing that, officer.
But there are plenty of...
all you would have to do is destabilize...
I get it. That's the anarchistic approach. There's plenty of groups that are working overtime 24/7 to do that. A lot of them are far right. The Order of Nine Angels, the Atomwaffen... they just want to destroy it all, right? But they're not. Those are federal honeypots that for people to go and get arrested and go to jail.
And theoretically,
so if you try to organize something like that, you're going to create a federal honeypot, and you're not going to succeed.
So again, you come right back to might makes right.
Well, I'm asking you.
Oh, you can't beat the government, so therefore it's okay to remain the way it is.
I never said that.
No, but that's exactly the implications of what you're saying.
The implications to me is that what you're calling the government, or at least society, has internal contradictions, and that Marxists are trying to accustom themselves to those contradictions and make sense of those contradictions.
I'm sorry, what did that have anything to do with taking down?
You're saying nothing will change, and that's not true, because change happens in an imminent way.
I'm not saying nothing will change.
According to the internal contradictions.
I never said that.
And not according to the voluntary will of anarchists who just want to destroy everything.
You're putting words in my mouth again. I never said nothing changes.
Okay. You said I think nothing should change. That's not what I think, because it's not about morality. It's about the objective fact that things are changing according to the development of their internal contradictions.
Yes, that's not what I meant.
So what did you mean?
I think it should change. Like,
okay.
What are you even accusing me of?
You think it should change, right?
Yes.
So does your should include a little bit of reality, or is it just something purely in your head?
Yes, this is reality. Reality is
but if it should, then there has to be a can. There has to be a can too, not just a should then.
So it's stolen, but you're adding the
If you say, for example, this cat that I have, it's a brown cat. This cat has 4 legs. Let's say the cat has 4 legs. I want the cat to have, this cat should have 5 legs. Is there a bit of reality in that demand?
Don't compare them, but don't make such an idiotic comparison.
But it's an extreme comparison to try to explain to the relationship.
It's a pretty stupid comparison.
But it's about explaining to the relationship between morality and reality.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And the reality
if your should has no can or means,
all you're saying is that you don't see how it could be given back. So
if your morality has no means to realize itself,
You're
then
ignoring.
you don't have a
the basis.
materialist understanding of morality.
No, yes, I do.
So
You're
how is
ignoring
it?
the very
Okay, how is
basis.
your morality materialist then?
Because this is stolen land, and your only argument is you can't force it to give it back, so therefore don't bother. And you know what? That doesn't even have to do with what the entire debate was supposed to be about anyway. What is America?
Okay,
America
hold on. This
is
is
a country
stolen.
of stolen land.
Okay,
Stolen land, slavery, genocide. Nothing
stolen.
you say about it happened before. It happened before America existed, and some of it did happen while America existed. All of these things are what America is. All of these things built what America is.
But why
That
is
does
it
not
okay?
change.
But that's still the reality that nonetheless
Yes.
you inhabit, you live, breathe, and eat and drink
And
from.
see, no, you're
And nonetheless, despite this reality, there still manages to be internal contradictions that don't obey merely being a result of this founding sin you're talking about.
Well, what does that have to do with the fact that
What
all
I'm
these
trying to
things
say
make up
is
what
that you
America
have
is?
to come to peace with the facts of history instead of having
I have to come to peace with native genocide slavery. You're telling a white person to come to peace with that.
yeah.
So what are you saying? I have to just accept that it happened. Okay, well, it doesn't
Well,
matter
you're making
anymore.
it seem
That was
like
a
I'm
long
asking
time
you
ago.
to like go into a time machine and not
No.
alter the events of what happened.
You can't.
You can't alter the events of what
That's
happened.
the point.
So what do you do
That
going
is the
forward?
basis of
So
America.
what
And
to
you're the
do
one
going
saying that
forward?
it just doesn't matter.
So what to do going forward?
Decolonize.
How?
Let them, the Native Americans, decide what they want to do. Don't
So let
write
them.
up some contracts. But don't
So
let
let
them
them.
write up contracts.
So let
Don't
them.
write up.
Let
don't
them.
let. Can I finish?
Finish.
Don't write up contracts by the U.S. government. They have to decide autonomously what happens.
So let them.
But the settler colonial state, that is America, brutally represses them to this day, preventing that from happening.
So what you're doing is virtue signaling moral indignation
No, it's
without
not virtue
backing it
signaling.
up with anything.
No. What are you talking about?
What is the implication of what you're
just
saying
explained.
practically? What does that mean practically? Again,
I
practice
literally
is not
just
about
explained.
practice is not about what you want to happen. It's about what will happen.
I literally
So what does
just
it mean
explained-
practically?
I just explained what America is and what it does. That's why you should not be.
But why
preaching
is
toward
it that the way you explain America is just this kind of Protestant Calvinist morality of a world of total depravity? It just seems all too conveniently
I'm
white
sorry,
and Western
but these
European.
things actually did happen, and these things do found
Okay, so you're
basis
basically
of it.
saying this is America. America is our reality. So reality is evil, corrupted, and sinful and fallen. That's what you're
America
saying.
is bad.
Is America our
And that should
reality?
not
Yes or no?
exist.
Is America our reality?
Yes, this is our reality.
So our reality is a fallen, sinful, evil world, right?
The last time I checked, the American Empire is a pretty fucking evil thing. Yes.
Okay, but you're just repeating Calvinism. I'm a Muslim. It doesn't translate to me.
No.
So I'll explain to you my theology.
So America's
I will explain to you my theology.
Okay, so
for Muslims, I'll explain to you my theology. You're a Protestant Calvinist. I'm a Muslim.
This has nothing to do
It does.
with what
It has
America
everything
is.
to do with it.
Nothing.
It has everything to do with it.
It has
It has
nothing.
everything to do with it.
American
In my
empire
Muslim
that should not
theology,
exist.
reality
Say
is
that, you
not
start
evil,
going off
fallen,
into
and
all
sinful.
these
There is a
absurdities
divine
to
wisdom
distract.
and ultimate reconciliation in all the events of history. That's my Muslim understanding of the
I
world.
hate to break it to you, but there's no material proof of God.
But you
And
still
anything. No, I am religious myself. But I also know that there is no such thing as an objective.
But you're a
proof of God.
fanatical Calvinist Protestant who believes
I'm
in
not
a world of total
fanatical
depravity.
Calvinist Protestant.
Then why are you merely
Empire
reproducing?
evil? I'm being a Protestant Calvinist.
But why are you merely reproducing the world of total depravity, the theology
I'm
of the
not
world of total
reproducing the
depravity?
world. I'm saying that it should be changed.
Well, how?
Boss, what
Okay,
the fuck are you even doing?
it should be changed. How will it be changed?
Okay, We were never arguing that. We were arguing what America
We have
is
to argue
and why
it.
Then
your morality has no basis in reality.
America, and why should we be
Okay, your moral prescriptions have no.
You are changing the subject.
Your moral prescriptions have no basis in reality.
You are a liar and changing the subject.
But your morality has no basis in reality.
I don't care what it is that you think this trying to twist morals and all this other stuff. What is America and why shouldn't we support it? You are trying to get as far away from that as possible.
I don't just see America as the theft of genocide and stolen land. How could I? It's not just that. That's a part of its history, but that's not all.
It is.
Is that all it is? So hold on. Let's break it down. Is that all it is?
That is the basis of what is. Okay, so there are some other aspects of it too.
So
that does not justify its existence.
So morality is the basis. The violation of morality is the material basis of America.
Continue to exist and be an empire.
So let's rein in the argument. The violation of your morality is the basis of America's existence.
No. We're not talking about my morality or anything.
Or whatever morality. The violation of morality.
Objectively, what is America? What built it? What is it today? What is its foundation and everything that it is? And but that is what
that doesn't address what is essentially America.
Exactly. You want to change what it is.
No, it doesn't address what America actually is, essentially speaking.
Essentially speaking, it's a genocidal fucking war machine.
Then according to you, and this is your view, not mine, had the American Republic not been founded, all of those things would have eliminated.
There is no maybe.
So had there been no American Republic,
that's what it is.
So I have you on record to be clear. Had the British Empire continued to rule the Americas, none of those things would have continued to happen.
What does that have to do with it?
If we're talking about what America essentially is, we're addressing in what way did America make a difference? Right? So what? That's what defines its essence.
You are distracting away from the essence of what it is. All these things that it did to get to where it is. Well, what if the British had kept it? So what? Okay, so the same thing happened with a British flavor. So what? It would still be wrong, and decolonization would still need to exist. You will not acknowledge the basis of America. You'll say that you will, but then you will go into all this other talk about morals and shit that has nothing.
But that morality is the only basis of your argument here.
Oh, so you don't think that land theft is wrong, and land theft, genocide, and slavery is wrong?
The reason I think it's wrong is because I wouldn't do it now.
Oh.
I'm against doing it in the here and now. Oh. How can I be against something that happened in the past?
So you need to be told or have someone tell you that bad things happening a long time ago are still bad?
Hold on. Let me take a call then. Give me a second.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty fucked up morality that you have there.
All right, I just got off the phone with George Washington. I told him he's an asshole because I don't approve of what he was doing.
I'm sorry, that was supposed to make what point?
It was supposed to make the point that I can't account for the past. I can't change the past in the way you're asking.
I know.
So what is the prescription? You're trying to draw a moral prescription based on something that happened in the past. What is the implication now? You're just trying to reverse the past. You can't reverse the past.
I'm not trying to reverse the past.
Yes, you are. You're trying to effectively reverse the past and cleanse your white self of your ancestors' sins. Yeah, because I'll break it down, Jason. Jason, you have white guilt and you want to be free of your white guilt. You just want to be free of your white guilt. I don't
push white guilt. I don't even.
Yes, you just want to be free of your white guilt.
No, okay, now you're just making personal attacks because you can't back up your position.
Okay. Forget about you personally. The people who are pushing this stuff just want to be free from their white guilt.
Oh, so the Native Americans that don't like America.
Native Americans, by and large, do not push for taking all of America seaboard to seaboard.
Say all of it. You're putting words into my mouth again.
They are not pushing for these audacious grand claims.
Yes, they are.
No, they are not.
And they don't love America either.
Well, why should they? Why should they?
They shouldn't.
So do they? Hold on. So much. Are Native Americans helped by American white people running them? Hey, let me join you guys. I hate America too. No, you help them by focusing on your own people, focusing on your own country, and making right by them. That's what will fucking help them, not by fucking running to the Keystone protest and partying there and acting like you're part of them. They want you to go win power among your own people so you could do right by them and you can address their current demands and their current needs and work something out with them in a fair way. They don't need you to virtue signal and condemn America and hate America because the basis of the American state lies in the American people. If you don't win the American people, you are not going to challenge the actions of the American state.
You think the American people are the state?
That is the basis, the material basis of every state on earth.
You literally think the United States government is the American people?
It is materially based in the American people, yes. As all states are.
Well, there's a pretty big disconnect between the American people and the U.S. state.
Well, I didn't say it's subjectively based in them. I said it's materially based in them.
Yeah, so that's pretty outlandish claim. Yeah,
which basically means
separation between the two. And so
which
what?
Basically, so what? If you win the American people, you can pose a threat to the current order.
Trust me, the American people don't pose a threat to the American order.
Look,
and in all honesty, first world people, that includes Canadians.
So why was the media and the deep state so worried about this thing they were calling populism? It seemed like they were really scared of that, and they were really worried about the threat of populism.
Because they didn't want violence. There's a big difference between them being worried about street violence and there being a revolution. I know a lot of Americans can't tell the difference.
It's not about... No, they weren't worried about the street violence during the Black Lives Matter protests.
Okay.
They were worried about the people, the American people, starting to disobey the institutions that rule over them, effectively leading to a crumbling of the deep state and the establishment. That's what they're scared of. They're scared shitless of that. Because formally speaking, we are still a democracy, and you can get people like Trump elected, still formally speaking.
You think America's a democracy?
Formally it is, yes.
Well, the term you're looking for is bourgeois democracy.
Sure, but that's what formal democracy means, bourgeois democracy.
That thing where the ruling class picks who runs the country.
That's what they've been getting away with, but the way you pose a threat to that is by forming a base in the hinterlands and in the countryside and encircling the cities.
Yeah, and I'm sure the American people will be doing that any day now.
Well, that's the job of communists, and you see how you're serving American imperialism by telling communists that they shouldn't do that.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that.
Well, that's what Caleb and Jackson say they should do.
Very specifically, every time this accusation has been made, resistance in the first world, revolution in the third. It's right there, resistance, and then over and over and over again. Just ignore the fact that I said that.
So what is resistance in the first world? What's an example?
Black Lives Matter. Anything that
You mean something that's run by the Democratic Party?
Did you let me finish? Something that is like that, but outside of it.
What's an example?
Would you let me answer?
I'm sorry.
Anything that runs that would destabilize the society in general. I don't care if it's right wing. I don't care if it's radical Islam. As long as it destroys the American empire.
So you're saying you're wagering that these things will destroy the American empire?
I'm not saying that I'm wagering these things. In my personal view, I think global warming is going to kill us before any of this happens. But that's not an excuse.
So your message in practice, indeed, is one of defeatism. Yes or no?
It's not really defeatism.
Yeah, we can't do anything. Just sit back and wait for something to happen.
No. My statement is that the American people will not do revolution.
So it's defeated.
If they cannot do revolution, then destroy America.
Okay. Two problems. There's two problems. How do you know they can't do it? Second issue.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
The second issue is how are you going to destroy America?
The second one, I literally just answered that.
You didn't answer it. You said you're going to wager that a broad, radical Islam and right-wing forces.
Anything. I just said
anything. Right. What are you going to be, a magician who puppeteers all of these things like as a conduit? Like it seems like you're saying sit back and wait for those people to do something. Otherwise, how you can't control those things.
That's literally the same thing as waiting for Americans to do revolution when they've been saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to do it."
I've never advocated for waiting.
Well, that's literally what's happening.
Well, Americans no, what's happening is that I'm trying to personally build.
Any minute now, we're going to do it.
No, I'm trying.
We're going to do it right after Russia. Oh, we're going to do it right after the Great Depression. Oh, it's building right after the Great Recession.
What I'm trying to do,
building in the 1960s, dude. We're going to.
What I'm trying to do is build.
Happens.
What I'm trying to do is build a media platform that will eventually help and steer and inform parties.
If you even got even the slightest amount of real influence, the government would shut you down. You'd be off YouTube.
We'll see. I'm willing to wait and test it and see what will happen.
Well, I don't need a crystal ball to see that if you do become
but the difference between me and you is that I'm actually willing to like prove it. Like, okay, you're
not proving anything. In fact, the opposite has always been true. In fact, this is where Marx's prediction actually was wrong.
What was his prediction?
He said that the advanced industrialized countries of the world, that would be Germany and England at his time, were going to be the ones to lead the revolution because they were the most proletarianized.
I don't believe that. That's not my view.
That's what he said. I'm just saying that's what he said.
Well, my view...
No, I'm not finished. That's what he said. The opposite was true.
Well,
it was actually the less
he and Engels came to recognize that later in their lives.
Yes, and even Lenin recognized that the industrialized advanced countries, which today would be the first world, will sell out every single struggle to democratic reforms.
That's not true.
That is exactly what has always.
Well, I can try to explain it for you, but
every single time.
Please don't interrupt me, and I'll explain it to you.
Show me one advanced industrialized country that went into revolution.
You're getting the theory wrong, really wrong.
No, I'm not getting the theory wrong.
Well, I'll explain why.
That's literally what happened.
Okay, I'll explain why.
Explain what really happened.
Yeah. So Marx later in his life acknowledged that the revolution was going to happen in Russia. It did. Lenin obviously recognized he could explain why it is the Bolsheviks triumphed within Russia rather than the advanced countries, but his message actually wasn't one of despair and defeatism to
I'm not arguing defeatism.
But please don't interrupt me. To the first world communists, his message was that Russia, countries like Russia, the less developed countries, explicitly and overtly made intelligible the fundamental distinctions, whether sociological or programmatic or like theoretical in terms of the party, with which people in the so-called developed countries can make use of it to learn from. So the point is that people in the advanced countries need to learn from the experience of the successful communist revolutions and parties, not just despair and say it's not possible because we're not poor and desperate enough as they were. So for an example of that, for example, which many Chinese communists actually endorse and it makes intuitive sense to them, is that how you learn from Maoism and the experience of Maoism in America is being able to have insight into the fact that the fundamental sociological distinctions that were essential to the events of the revolution within China can actually be discerned within America with more insight. America does have a countryside that can encircle the cities. We do have a popular broad strata that is applicable here. We do have not just farmers or whatever, but we do have a rural working class that Mao's theories and his thought can apply to. So it's in China that these things become intelligible to us and become apparent to us, and it's the job of people in it's the job of communists in the advanced imperialist countries to learn, to humble themselves and learn from these experiences. So the logical conclusion of Marx being wrong does not mean that communists can't do anything to win power or even try to win power, at least build a base of power, a movement within advanced Western countries. So that's a wrong interpretation.
So that explains why it has been a complete historical failure in every way, shape, or form, which is why we have Unruhe denouncing.
I think the reason for the failure, though, is that communists in the West are much like you.
People, no,
Yeah.
that's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Yeah. No, it's exactly the fact.
Fucking that is complete bullshit. They are nothing.
It's 100% the fact. They were completely confused.
Everybody a defeatist. Everybody is just like me, a defeatist.
Oh,
no,
that is ultimately what
they really say they're going to do it. They really believe they're going to do it. They form up a party, and then it never happens.
But what are they doing? What are they doing?
Fundamental thing they forget. Every communist party in the first world makes the same mistake. No one follows them.
Yeah, I agree.
Wants to.
I agree, but I think the reason no one follows them is because they're wrong, and not because the people are wrong.
Because it's not in their material interest.
So let's get this
I want
through.
you walk up to a construction worker who makes $70,000 a year, give him a rifle, and say it's time to do revolution. Give up.
I would never do such a ridiculous anarchistic.
Because he would laugh at you.
I would laugh at that proposal myself. That's an anarchistic, voluntaristic, adventuristic, stupid thing to do.
No,
that's so stupid. That's not how revolutions happen.
One of them.
Revolutions don't happen because people just say, I want to overthrow the government, and that's it.
No, I'm not.
Revolutions happen because of the objective development of contradictions leading to the collapse of the state. They don't happen just because you take power voluntarily. That's voluntarism.
The government falls by itself, and then communists sweep in.
Yeah, in some objective way, the government does collapse. Its legitimacy collapses.
To begin with.
What?
When nobody supports communists in the first world to begin with.
Well, whose fault is that? Is it the people's fault or communist fault? I'm thinking it's the communist fault.
I'm saying it's the material conditions.
Well, you're saying the people are to blame for not buying into my ideology. I'm saying your ideology is wrong.
It's not in their interest to fight.
Why isn't it in their interest to fight?
They're not going to give up their middle-class life.
No one's asking them to. Why would you ask them to give up their middle-class life?
No one is going to give up their life to just go be a guerrilla fighter and live a life.
I would never ask them to be a guerrilla fighter in the first place.
Exactly who's going to be doing the revolution?
Why does anyone need to be a guerrilla fighter in America? That's stupid.
You just said you believed in revolution. Who do you think? Who's supposed to fight?
Yeah, because I believe the objective laws of social revolution are not the same thing as a voluntaristic adventure of being a guerrilla.
Oh, so you're basically saying violent revolution is not going to happen.
You don't go out of your way to be violent, no. You don't. You don't go out of your way to be violent.
Don't know what revolution is.
If that's an objective consequence of a revolution, then whatever, but you don't go out of your way to be violent. That's stupid.
So you oppose violent revolution?
I oppose adventurism.
No, you just literally.
Yeah, I oppose criminal adventurism and stupidities like that. Of course I do.
Yeah, so you literally just said, so you don't believe in violent revolution. You literally just said that.
Well, violent revolution just seems like adventurism to you.
Who is it that's going to overthrow the government in bourgeois society?
It's not going to be voluntary.
People aren't going to voluntarily fight the revolution?
What revolution are you talking about? So when we talk about an objective...
hypothetical.
Okay, I'll try to explain it to you. So when we talk about revolution, there's two aspects of it. There's an objective social revolution and there's a political revolution. Objective social revolutions follow the laws of history. They happen because of revolutions in the forces of production, right? This gives rise to a strata that is... that fundamentally socially changes in its composition. This is a social revolution.
Okay, now let's talk about reality.
Yeah.
In reality, someone fights it.
I can give you an example of this in reality. For example, American workers have been used to manufacturing jobs and guaranteed jobs and white picket fences and middle-class houses and this kind of way of life. Well, when jobs got outsourced and overseas and we're seeing rise to the fourth industrial revolution, we're seeing rise to a social revolution occurring, right? A former mode of production is changing and shifting and transforming into another, and a former class is breaking down and being proletarianized in a new way. Okay, so that is a social revolution that is happening now, and it has been the source, the primary source of America's internal political contradictions since the Nixon era, right? Nixon championed this working class. Later, Reagan was trying to do it. paradoxically. The Democrats abandoned the working class and moved on to get support from urban liberal cities.
So when does this become like an actual revolution?
I think you're just talking about a fantasy, not reality.
No, in real life, revolution is a tremendously violent act. That's why Mao wrote "Revolution is not a dinner party." That was his explanation for why things were being so violent and destructive.
Why are you so fixated on the question of violence, is my question.
Because that's literally what a revolution is.
Sure, it may inevitably be that, but
no,
that's not the essence of the point. There are objective social revolutions.
If you're arguing something that is not violent revolution, you're a sockdem.
But Marxists don't advocate for violent revolutions. They may recognize that revolutions...
What the fuck did you just say?
They don't. They may recognize that revolutions may inevitably
Marx
be...
very specifically, and in all history of revolutions, when these things actually happen, they were violence. Marx even
But he never advocated for them to be violent.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
That is a lie. That is a lie.
No, he didn't.
That is an outright lie. Marx never advocated for violent revolution. Dude, you're fucking done. You're fucking done.
He didn't.
You're done.
He recognized that revolutions...
No, he did. He said it had to come from violence.
He said that it will inevitably be violent, probably. But it might not in England or in America, but then with imperialism, the state machinery must be smashed. So yeah, it will inevitably be violent.
I'm sorry.
But he's not he's not saying it's he's not saying it will be violent because it should be violent.
He's saying that because it has to be.
What does it mean has to be?
Bourgeoisie don't go away by themselves. We didn't move from feudalism to capitalism peacefully either. We didn't move from primitive accumulation to feudalism peacefully.
But you don't advocate for violence.
Violence is how it changes.
No, violence is a part of how it changes. You don't advocate for the violence itself.
Violence is what
Jason,
makes
I think
you
just want to LARP.
Sorry.
I think you're just bored and want to LARP. That's what I think. I just think you want to LARP.
At first I was a defeatist, now I'm a LARP. Which is it?
I think you're a defeatist because you realize you can't LARP.
You are full of shit. Marx specifically said it was violent. It has always been violent because it always has to be. Because the bad guys don't go away by themselves.
But revolution isn't a voluntary act, is the problem.
You see, the thing is, it kind of is.
No, it obeys...
Because it doesn't just happen by itself.
But it obeys social laws. It's not a voluntary act.
And
absolutely not.
Is always necessary in all of them. If you were going to stand here and say revolution is going to happen without violence, or that Marx didn't advocate for violence, you literally don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know if a revolution can happen without violence. I don't think it can.
No, it can't.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to advocate for violence. See the difference?
Because that's literally how it works. So if you're not advocating for literally how it works, what are you doing?
Okay. What does it mean to advocate for a revolution? Go ahead.
That's what it means. That's what a communist revolution is.
So you want to ask people to violently overthrow the government?
No. Under the right conditions, they will do it. And I would say, under the conditions of the First World, they will not do it. That is why revolution is not possible in the First World. Until the only exception would be if there was enough of an economic crisis that broke the First World down to the level of a third world country, then it might be possible.
You know, the problem with this theory is that third world countries only enter revolutionary situations when a middle class becomes downwardly mobile from its previous position, rather than people just being poor and desperate. When people are just poor and desperate, there is no revolution.
So the Philippine Revolution has been going on for almost 50 years.
Which is why it's not a real revolution. Real revolutions don't last 50 years. States last 50 years, maybe.
You can do a revolution badly.
No, it's not a real revolution. It's just not.
Okay, now you're playing. It didn't happen instantly overnight, so therefore it's not a real revolution.
I think there's a difference between overnight and 50 years. Don't you think? There's a lot of room.
I think there is. Just because they're not doing it very well, or maybe there are other factors in, and I would say that their revolution is actually failing.
But it's not a revolution. Unless you have a strange definition of revolution that I'm not aware of. A revolution means you're overthrowing the government. They're not doing that.
They are trying to. Not very well.
So if I try to overthrow if you try to overthrow the government, are you doing revolution?
A person and a movement.
So how many people do you need for it to be a real revolution? Okay, so
now you want to play semantics.
I just want to know why you're calling it a revolution when it's not.
Look, this debate is already over. You already refuse to acknowledge that the basis for what America is, and just tried to go off into all this morality stuff and calling me a Calvinist. And
because it really seems like the only significance you have.
You went and said revolution wasn't.
But hold on,
the reason a violent fact.
But the reason we started that way.
You literally just admitted that you're a sock dem.
Okay, but the reason we started that way, Jason, was because you said that the material basis of America is defined by morality. And I don't agree that it's defined by morality.
I said it was defined by slavery and genocide.
Things whose essential significance is moral.
And? So they still are the basis of America. And when you champion
There's a difference between the basis...
America, that's what you're defending.
There's a difference between the basis of America and an immoral fact of America's founding
so you want to play
that you can't come into terms with.
You're playing word games. You're trying to pretend that none of the slavery
Jason, you can't just lose an argument and accuse the other person of playing word games. You're losing the argument here.
You literally lost.
Okay, fine. Let the public think what they may. I'm in the hands of God. But all I can say is that...
Yeah, the hands of God are pretty fucking useless. And I say that as a religious person myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the hands of God. That's that's complete bullshit.
Well, I'm open to whatever the public will think of it, is my point.
Me too.
Sorry. I just want to state my piece.
Yeah, and my piece was to erase the history of the United States and pretend that it has no bearing on what it is today.
I think you want to erase. I don't want to erase the history. Yes, you are.
Undo the damage that was done.
Which is erasing it.
There's a difference between trying to undo the damage that was done and pretending
you're erasing it. You're erasing it.
I'm not erasing it. I'm not erasing it.
The damage you're talking about is a fundamental fact of history that cannot be reversed.
No, but you can give justice to the survivors.
But the survivors don't want justice in the form of reversing the history altogether.
I'm not talking about reversing
It's a part of our common history.
You are lying about what I'm saying.
Listen, it's a part of our common history,
about what I'm
which
saying.
we still
you
are actively...
twisting my words into some kind of moral bullshit that has nothing to do with...
It's 100% based in morality.
You are absolutely...
It's 100% based in morality. Your position is 100% entirely based in morality.
Yes, I do stand on the moral position that slavery and genocide are bad things. And you were just ignoring that it's what America is.
Here's all I have to say on it, right? This is a fundamental fact of history. It's a history which we reproduce, we eat, breathe, and live in this dirtied and sinful reality.
All of those crimes don't
so the difference between you and me is this. The difference between you and me is this. We are all marked by sin, and there's sin in a fallen world all around us. My point is that we can find meaning in this history and we can reconcile this history. Your position is that we must commit ourselves to completely erasing and reversing this history so that we could be devoid of sin.
That's a lie.
You're saying before we can act on anything, we must cleanse ourselves of the sin of the forefathers.
That is the basis of America.
A complete Christian prejudice.
What the fuck are you talking about?
You want to wipe all the sins away as a prerequisite for getting to work. Yes or no?
This has nothing to do
with... The sins must be wiped away before we can be communists. Yes or no?
I think we cannot be communists until that happens.
Until we wipe the sins clean state, Christ sacrificed himself.
Until we give justice for the people that were wrong.
So who will die for our sins to give us this clean state slate?
No one really theoretically even has to die.
Should I offer myself as the Christ who redeem humanity?
No, you're actually
all of the crimes right now are gone. You are pure now, Western white leftists. Now you can get to work.
So yeah, you're just going to reduce it to insults. Okay, I think we're done here. You literally want to ignore the history of the United States.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you have a lot of cultural...
That's exactly
but you have a lot of cultural and theological prejudices that I don't understand.
No, I'm sorry, but your religion has nothing to do with this.
No, but yours
In
does.
fact, God has nothing to do with
My
this.
religion doesn't, but yours does. You're a
No,
hardcore
it doesn't.
Calvinist. You don't even represent all Christians.
You see,
Not
you're
all
going
Christians.
at me
You
with
don't represent
Calvinists
most
the same
Christians,
way
but you are
Vosh
a
calls
hardcore
people
Calvinist.
fascists.
You
That's
are a
exactly
hard.
the same thing, Vosh.
No, I'm
You're
saying
calling
you're.
me a Calvinist the way Vosh calls people fascist.
No,
That's
not
exactly
at
what
all.
you're doing right now.
But okay, so I'll
There's
reason
nothing
with you.
religious
I'm
about
willing
that
to.
position
I'm
at all.
willing to reason with you about it. Okay, I'm calling you a Calvinist, and I'm trying to reason with you about it because
Okay, so you're
your
deliberately lying about who I am and
understanding
what I
of
do.
reality is pretty
You're
much the same as the
No,
Calvinist
it's not.
understanding.
No.
Why not? What's the
Okay,
difference?
you ignore the history of slavery and genocide. You share the same.
Okay, but what
historical
makes your view? What makes your view different from a Calvinist
You
view?
share the same thing as a fascist. You're being a fascist.
Okay, but
right
I can
now.
reason about
Your
my
ideology
position.
is fascism. You try to ignore slavery and genocide as though how somehow it's
But
not.
you're not
Hey,
actually reasoning your
sorry,
position.
you're a fascist.
But I'm not
See?
just calling
It's
you
pretty fucking
names. I'm
annoying
trying
when
to
someone
reason
does
about
that,
it.
isn't it?
I'm not
Pretty
just
annoying
calling
when
you
someone
names,
does that.
Jason.
Yes, you did. You were calling me. You were calling
But I'm
me. a fucking
trying to
Calvinist.
explain to you why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Because the only way for you to be right is to try to rip the context out of what I was saying and then call me religious.
Well, okay, how about I just don't call you religious? I'll just call you an idealist. Is that fair?
Oh, okay. So acknowledging the history of the United States is idealism. Okay.
No, but that's not. You're not just acknowledging history. You're creating an entire practical and moral prescription for the present based on a
Yes,
certain
it's
moral
called
understanding
justice to the
of the
people who
past.
have been wronged.
That is a meaningless phrase.
That is a meaning. Justice to people who have been wronged is a
That
meaningless
can mean
phrase.
anything.
I think I already outlined what that is.
And who are you to outline that? When native
think that's
indigenous,
what
when
needs
by
to
and
be-
large
Oh, so
indigenous people
I'm
are
wrong
not
because I'm
outlining
white.
it the way you're saying.
I'm wrong because I'm white, even though that's what would be justice.
But,
Okay,
but,
you know what?
but who are you to
Oz,
speak for the
Oz,
justice
you're
of
full
it?
of shit. Oz, you are fucking full of shit.
But you are not indigenous people.
You are.
So how do you know what
Well,
justice
actually,
means for them?
Technically, I don't like to play this card, but I am. But that doesn't matter.
But how do you
That
know?
doesn't matter.
Okay, but how do you know what justice means for them?
Because that's what they're asking for. And the only
How do
thing
you know
you're gonna
that's what they're asking for?
How do we know that they? What the fuck do you think "I don't know more" means? What do you think that the whole resurgence?
They're not asking for that. They're not asking for that.
Okay, so you're saying that they're not asking.
They
for
are not
reparation and
asking
land back.
for all
Okay.
America.
And I didn't say they were asking for all land back. This is the third time.
So
you
what land do
falsely
they want
accused me of
back that
being.
must lead to the destruction of the
I
Republic?
don't know what it is exactly that they want.
Why
I
must
know
it
they
lead
want
to the
their land
destruction
back.
of the Republic?
Because the Republic is bad. I don't think you've noticed that.
More morality that means nothing.
Oh,
to me.
I'm sorry. An empire built on imperialism, slavery, and genocide is me being
The
modest.
Republic
You know
was
what?
founded on the
Oz,
basis of
Oz,
seceding
you're
from the
full of
empire.
it. You
The
are
Republic
full
was
of-
founded on the
The
base.
U.S. is an empire.
It has become one also because we have allowed the British intelligence
It
to
wasn't
conquer
always
our
an
country.
empire, so therefore it doesn't matter.
Well, the British
Dude, what the fuck are you even arguing?
class conquered our deep state and our country and became our ruling class. So yeah, we became an empire.
Okay.
But that's not how the Republic was founded.
No, but that's what it is.
That's what it became.
That's what it is, and that's what it was always.
So
on
do you
path to
think it's
be.
an American people's national tradition to be an empire? When our national
case you
tradition
haven't-
is
Yes.
our national tradition is to secede from empires, not to become them.
Really? Because I could have sworn there was stealing of Mexico, the constant supporting of endless wars to steal territory that were highly supported by the American people. Even if they weren't supported by the American people, it's still a reality.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
but they were supported by the American people because the people leading the American people, whereas Lenin understood, was a labor aristocracy and were petty bourgeois elements aligned to U.S. imperialism that were leading them. And Lenin didn't just say that you should concede the battlefield to those elements. He said communists should lead the American people in contrast to those elements.
Manifest destiny.
What about it?
You're basically arguing it.
Well, Manifest Destiny included many injustices against indigenous people, I agree, but that's not all.
Which, according to you, are not significant today.
They may be, but you have to go on a case-by-case basis.
No, they are relevant. that is the basis of America. You have an idealized version of what America is, detached from the material reality of what it has been,
How is
what
that?
it has always been, and what it
Okay.
will
How
always
is? Well,
be.
I just don't think morality is the basis and essence of material reality. That's all.
No, but slavery is a material thing that happened. So is genocide and land
So
theft. These are
okay,
material things that happened, which you are trying to
I agree that
essentially say
they
don't matter.
they materially happened. I didn't contest that.
No, but you're essentially your position does.
So because they happened, that means that's that's all material reality is now.
It doesn't have to be, but that's the basis for it.
What do you mean by basis? Elaborate.
That's what built America.
So elaborate.
America exists physically on a space that was stolen by slaughtering off the population that lived there and then brought a whole another population from Africa to do work on it. Why
Okay,
do
so
I have
so
to
now
explain
how is
that?
it the basis right now?
Because that's what built up America.
So how is that the basis now?
It is the basis because that's the foundation.
Is a foundation the past or is a foundation something that exists in the present?
Actually, it's something that exists in the present too, because that's what built it up.
So how does it exist in the present is my question.
America's privileged position in the world, and not even if it wasn't privileged position in the world, it literally exists on stolen land. What part of that are you not getting?
I know you keep repeating these moral indignation mantras.
Oh my god!
But I fail to see the significance.
Land theft doesn't matter. It's a moral issue.
So you can't get over how much you're out.
No, land theft doesn't exist.
You just can't get over how much you're outraged about something that happened hundreds of years ago.
And you can't get over trying to whitewash it and pretend it never existed.
I never pretended it doesn't exist.
It doesn't matter today. Oh, exactly how far back?
I guess I'm just not a Calvinist who sees sin all around me and feel. I can see and breathe the sin all around me. There's sin all around me. I feel the smell of the sin. I don't live that way. Okay,
you're going right back to the personal attacks.
I'm sorry. I just don't understand that way of approaching reality.
Yes, everyone who disagrees with me is a Calvinist.
I just think you're a Calvinist.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, everyone who doesn't agree with my ignoring of history.
I just don't detect. I'm not like haunted by the spirit of sin all around me. I don't have white guilt.
To do with America today.
I don't have white guilt.
Attacking skin color. Yeah, attacking skin.
I don't have white guilt.
I'm not.
So help me understand it. I don't have the white guilt you have.
There you go. So there you go. Ad hominem again. You're just going after.
Well, okay. On the one hand, you're saying I'm denying history.
Everyone who disagrees with me is white guilt Calvinism.
Well, what else do you want me to say? You're telling me that
if you cannot understand that America stands on stolen land today and the legacy of that theft and what it still does to people to this day, then there's no helping you.
Yeah, but you're saying that the implication is that all of America must cease to exist because of this sinful past. I disagree with that.
Yeah, and it's sinful present as well. Because that sinful past and sinful present is what it is.
How?
There is no divorcing that.
How?
The 900 military bases that exist around the world today are a thing that today.
So are you so you are aiding the demise of American imperialism by isolating yourselves from the masses, so effectively you can't pose any threat to American imperialism.
No. In the way that you think that they're just going to suddenly become revolutionary and do something, even when all history has proven the opposite.
I don't know why you're getting so excited on the basis.
You can go ahead. I don't expect
Go ahead.
to agree with me. I don't expect first worldists to agree with me.
But you're just getting.
Go ahead. Go cosplay Revolution. Tell everybody that they're the biggest.
I'm not cosplaying Revolution. I'm cosplaying Mongols.
No, you're talking like
I'm not cosplaying Revolutions. I'm cosplaying Mongols. But I don't know why you're getting so.
You're talking like you're going to do revolution.
Can you calm down,
American people
please?
are going to do revolution. You're not going to do it. You can go ahead and believe that you can go.
You remind me a lot of Irrelevant, dude. You're getting high off your own supply of copium and just excitedly repeating mantras of straw men that I've never said.
No, that's an outright lie.
No, you're just like getting excited based on narratives instead of following the line of argumentation that's been
No,
presented.
I am following
You're
the
getting
line.
like high off now. Like you're like that guy's like, you deny the
Okay,
labor aristocracy. You
now
deny
you're
the
going
labor aristocracy.
fast.
It's like, why don't you
Now you're
take it
going
back a
fast.
little
I didn't do
bit,
that. I
reel
didn't do
it
that.
back in a little bit, and focus on what's
I
been
didn't do
said.
that.
I never
You're lying
said,
again.
I have never ever said that Americans are just going to suddenly wake up one day and become revolutionary. That's a straw man argument. I've never said that.
They're not going to be, even in a protracted way or whatever it is that you think it's going to happen.
Well, I think revolution means something different to you than what it means to me.
Yeah, sorry. In all of existing history, it has been violent. And you're
Revolution to you is like a millenarian kind of like LARPy, like a voluntary
I don't think
act.
you realize exactly what the revolution and Chinese Revolution were. They were very long,
Jason,
physical wars.
do you know what the merging is? The merger?
No, what is this thing you made up?
I didn't make it up. A guy named Chris Chan believes there's going to be a merger. And it's like the ultimate sight of like the absolute in the future.
Okay, you're quoting Chris Chan. Stop.
But that's how many American leftists think of revolution. They think of it as like this thing in the future that is going to be like the ultimate and absolute realization of the inner like aesthetic and moral craving and striving of the subject.
Years, it hasn't shown up.
But I think that's a non-Marxist view of how what revolution is.
No, that's actually idealism, what you're talking for. Oh, wait, they're just going to suddenly wake up one day. There's going to be a grand revelation, and all of a sudden, everything's going to be okay. Sorry, that's idealism.
I've argued the opposite of that.
Then why are you bringing it up?
I'm accusing you of bringing it up, not me.
No, I don't think that at all.
Well, you think of revolution as a point of like the absolute in reality, like the ultimate and absolute kind of thing that happens in reality.
No, like, I said it's a military matter. It's a violent military matter. Literally, it's one class overthrowing another. I'm sorry, Haas. You literally just denied violent revolution. You're a stock dem.
Okay, it may be a military matter.
Maybe, okay. Even though all
but it's not. The opposite. Do you know what? Okay, what is volunteerism in the history of Marxism? Why do Marxists accuse others of volunteerism? What does that mean when they do that?
I have no idea what that kind of sounds like bullshit. Actually, I don't know what it is.
But Lenin talks about it.
Okay, what does he mean by it?
He means by volunteerism people who think that revolution is something that is enacted in reality rather than something that obeys historical and social laws.
Yes, and in real life, you need the material conditions and you need the effort to actually do it.
No, actually, it's not.
Oh, you don't need the effort to actually do it.
But by effort, you mean a voluntary act of taking up arms, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that Lenin calls that volunteerism.
You literally think people just spontaneously just rise up all of a sudden?
No, Lenin addresses the distinction between spontaneity.
Okay, then what is the distinction? Because you just contradicted
Yeah, they're two sides of the same coin. Spontaneism and volunteerism share the same refusal to acknowledge the decisive significance of the party as the organ of the interests of the material proletariat in reality. The party is in reality. It's a part of reality. It becomes part of the people and part of reality.
That would be, yes, violence is necessary.
No, the party must become part of reality.
Yes, I agree.
And by becoming part of reality, it seizes revolutionary moments and acquires power.
And how do they acquire that power?
They acquire that power through the breakdown of the state and through acquiring the support of the masses, the trust and support of the people. And they solidify that power and that basis, obviously on the basis of the military power. In the case of the October Revolution, it was the support of the sailors and the soldiers that allowed the Bolsheviks to consolidate power. That's not the same as Antifa going and,
I didn't say that. I said revolutions require
violence. It kind of just sounds like by violent revolution, you mean people just taking up arms.
No, I said violence in the end is necessary along with everything else.
What do you mean by violence? Stop. You fucking idiot.
What?
You fucking dumbass. Get the fuck out of here, you dumb fuck.
It's not even a real gun.
It's not a real gun?
No. You can't get a fucking AK in Canada. I'm illustrating my point. You pick up a gun, and then you fight. I'm not saying that's
yeah, but that's volunteerism, Jason. That's what fucking volunteerism means.
That's all there is.
And why doesn't it have an orange tip?
Because it doesn't need one.
Aren't they supposed to have orange tips?
Airsoft guns don't need orange tips. Not here.
Dude, that was so stupid. You could have just said your point. Don't bring props. And dude, you have to understand. You have to understand that what you're talking about is volunteers. That's not what the Bolsheviks did. They didn't just pick up a gun and fight the government.
They did. I never said they did.
They defended themselves in a civil war when they were attacked for seizing power.
I never said all they did was violence. That is another.
So how did Mao seize power of China?
Well, largely by killing the nationalists after killing the Japanese.
So what's the detail that's missing here? Was there a central Chinese state that he randomly rebelled against and then took over?
What do you mean randomly rebelled against?
No, the Chinese state collapsed because of the Japanese invasion.
That civil war.
And it was the warlord. It's called the warlord era in the 30s. There was no government to take up arms against, so to speak. There was an all-out civil war already, a warlord era. The communists emerged triumphant.
So you're saying the Nationalist Party didn't have anything? I'm sorry, you're full of shit. And by the way, that civil war happened after the revolution in Russia.
Yeah, but the revolution in Russia wasn't just people taking up arms and overthrowing the government.
No, I know. We've already agreed to that. That's not what it was.
So what is it by violent revolution you mean? If it's not what happened in Russia or China, what is it by violent revolution you mean?
Bourgeois state does not go away by itself. I don't understand what you're not getting about this.
The reason it doesn't go away by itself is because the proletarian party must have the logistical, organizational, and mass support to acquire hegemony over the state.
Yes.
To replace it.
So you're arguing that no violence is necessary along with all that?
It may very well be necessary, but it's not the point. The point isn't violence.
I didn't say the point was violence. I said it was.
So why are you so fixated on it?
Because you said that.
Why can't you just follow? Hold on, Jason. Why can't you just follow the laws?
You said.
Why can't you just follow? Why can't you just follow the laws? Which majority?
You didn't believe in violent revolution.
I said you don't advocate for violent revolution, which you shouldn't. You should never advocate for a violent revolution in this kind of situation.
What a revolution. Well, I know, because first of all, people won't do it. But that's besides.
Well, it's not just because people won't do it; it's because it's stupid.
Yeah. Okay.
When the internal contradictions can be developed.
When that's okay.
When the internal contradictions can be developed legally. Why would you advocate for a violent revolution? It makes no sense.
Because that's what a revolution is.
Because you're a subjectivist who believes that internally and morally, you've arrived at a position that condemns the entirety of the American state and gives you the right to overthrow it violently.
So you think
but that's complete individualist subjectivism. You don't have the right to overthrow the U.S. government violently. You know what? In order to have the right to do that, you have to develop the imminent contradictions that are the basis of the U.S. state and follow through with them. The imminent contradictions. You don't have the right to overthrow governments just because internally and subjectively you've decided they're immoral and don't have a basis to exist.
That's not what I'm arguing.
There has to be an imminent, objective, and material basis for a revolution. It's not just based on your own moral condemnation.
I wasn't saying on my own moral ground. I was saying that the American people aren't going to do it. It needs to be done. The system does need to be done.
They're not going to do it because it's fucking stupid.
No, because they won't do it, period.
So because the American people don't want to join your fantasy LARP, they're evil.
So now it's a fantasy LARP.
Yes, that's exactly what it is, Jason. You literally brought up fantasy prop toy to illustrate.
fucking words, you piece of shit.
You brought a toy to fucking illustrate your point.
About needing a gun, about violence. Because there is violence in a
It's
revolution.
Stupid LARP, dude.
Violence in a revolution is a stupid LARP.
As you're putting it, yeah, it is.
No, it's not how I'm putting it. You are twisting my words. You are making it say that I'm saying that it's just violence, that's all there is. No, I never said that. You are a liar. I never said that. I never gave the impression.
So what are you saying?
I said that it was a necessary.
So defend yourself and clarify. What are you saying?
I'm saying that it's a part of the larger revolution, that's a part of the larger revolutionary effort. And then you said that you didn't believe in using violence. So I took
That's
that
not
to
what
mean,
I said.
So I took that to mean that you didn't believe in using
You
violence
just accused me of being a liar, but you just lied about what I said.
Hold on.
You just lied about me.
Hold on, I'm trying to explain. I took that to mean that you said there would be no violence at all. I misunderstood.
That's not what I meant.
You were saying. I just said that. I just said I misunderstood.
What I said is that you shouldn't advocate for violence. You never advocate for violence.
Come on down to the revolution, people. Don't worry, there won't be any violence.
No, you just don't advocate for it. You say we follow the laws.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, okay.
Here's what you tell the people. You tell the people you follow the laws, and if the government starts violating its own laws and effectively collapses at that point, our bourgeois democracy collapses, then as our founding fathers told us, you have a right to...
The founding fathers are complete fucking...
But it's the reason I would bring it up is because it has legitimacy in the eyes of the American people to defend themselves and their liberties and their rights when they're ruled...
That's another criticism that should be made.
What is the criticism?
That the Constitution, that monstrous piece of shit, should even have any...
I don't think the Constitution is really that bad. It's really...
It's complete reactionary capitalist garbage. There's like one or two good things in there, but materially they don't actually exist.
Well, it has a different meaning for the American people than that.
Oh, so you really do have freedom of speech?
No, the American people interpret the meaning of the Constitution as the founding document of a country founded on the basis of declaring independence from the British Empire and being a union state that's by, of, and for the people.
And we literally know what the founding fathers meant by the people. He meant specifically not the black ones, specifically not the red ones, and not the women because they weren't actually people. And they literally meant...
Well, why is it that communists have consistently praised the founding fathers like Mao and Lenin and Marx and those people, Stalin?
Because
all of those
the
people...
progressive role that it played at the time. And even then, I would actually criticize them for it. The United States...
I wouldn't criticize... I think they were right. I think when Mao said he wanted to posthumously make George Washington a member of the Communist Party, I agree with Mao.
Washington was a slave owner.
Yeah.
And first of all, when Mao said that was late in his life, and I really, really wouldn't take the stuff he said late in life very seriously.
Well, I think you're a revisionist then, because I take what he says seriously.
Mao meeting Nixon is a good thing. That's something that
I think it was a good thing, yeah.
Okay. So
it was a great
betraying
thing,
the revolution is okay.
What's that?
Literally betraying the revolution.
What revolution?
The Chinese Revolution.
How did he betray the Chinese Revolution by meeting
with the enemy and proposing to work with them against the Soviet Union?
The Soviet Union was engaging in aggression against China at the time, and China was just trying to defend itself.
You're literally supporting the Sino-Soviet split.
Wait, why were the Soviets amassing troops at the border of China?
They had a conflict. That doesn't mean you side with
But even before the conflict, they were amassing troops.
Okay, you know what, Haas? You literally just defended siding with imperialism.
I side with China during the Sino-Soviet split. I do.
And you support them meeting with Nixon to engage in collaboration against the Soviet Union.
They were defending themselves from a foreign aggression.
So you think that they needed to collaborate with the United States to do that?
They had to do whatever was necessary.
Bullshit. They didn't need to do that.
And it really wasn't the United States per se that they were collaborating
Oh
with.
no, of course not.
They
just
they were
agreed on an
actually
alliance against the
collaborating with
Soviet Union.
Nixon against the Democrats too.
Uh,
That's why Mao said he likes the Republicans more than the Democrats. He said that. His words,
you
not mine.
literally just defended Mao allying with the United States imperialist power. Fuck. So you better
Well, I am an
ally
actual.
with the United States against another socialist.
Isn't your name Maoist
revisionist-
Rebel News? I'm more of a Maoist than you are.
No, I'm sorry. You're advocating the opposite of Maoism.
But your name is literally Maoist Rebel News.
You are uncritically taking everything Mao says as truth. That's literally.
That's not necessarily true, but
yeah, I'm sorry, but that was complete.
But bullshit. I agree with the decisions Mao made.
Sorry, that was an incorrect decision. I do not support.
I don't think it was. I think the blame.
Country. Sorry.
Well, I think the Soviets.
The Soviets forced the Chinese to ally with the United States.
They really did, actually.
That's
they really
bullshit.
did. Well, do you know about Soviet agents approaching the Americans about teaming up against China before?
And I would criticize them for that too.
So what was China supposed to do to defend itself?
Well, it physically could defend itself. It didn't have to turn around to the United States and, hey, can we work together?
So how did they work together? How did they materially work together? That was so bad.
By forming diplomatic alliances against them.
Diplomatic relations. Primarily trade relations, if you remember.
Yeah.
Which ultimately benefited who? United States or China in the long run?
It benefited both of them.
In the long run, who did it actually benefit?
Technically, both of them.
No, it benefited China and hurt America really bad in the long run.
Well, I would.
Because the Chinese were smart and they knew what they were doing.
Even then, okay, let's just say it benefited.
Because
China.
I'll explain why. You want to know why that is, though? Well, because from the Chinese perspective, they have a more kind of Eastern traditionalist spiritual perspective on what revolution means. For them, revolution isn't a millenarian, romantic thing that just suddenly happens. Yeah, it's a long game. They think of it as a long game, right? They think it of generationally. They think of it as a long game. They think of it as something that happens subtly. That's something that happens subtly accumulating into something big. Yes, a rupture. But they don't think of it how you think of it.
No,
and they were right
about that. I haven't.
China is the premier, the ascendant and premier world power now because of that wisdom. And you are in Canada with a toy gun.
Take the personal shot, didn't you?
Well, you're criticizing Mao's decisions, and you have to go on that basis.
Yes, I can criticize him.
Yeah, well, you have to.
I can disagree with his decision, yes.
His decision, which led to China being the premier power of the world. Something he couldn't even dream of at the time.
Allying with, oh my God, you really.
Everything China did ultimately was to its benefit and its favor.
Oh, the Chinese billionaires would agree with you.
Well, we can actually. I was going to talk about that today too. We can talk about the fact that the Communist Party has made it very clear now, decisively, that this new class, as they call them in China, will have no part of sharing power with the Communist. If the Communist Party deems it fit, they will all be eliminated. If that's the result and consequence of this decision. What's that?
The capitalists don't have any power. Also, the capitalists continue to exist. Exactly why?
They have no power whatsoever.
Why do they exist?
On the base, because for now, they are serving the interests of the Communist Party. But they're starting to not... It's starting to actually slip. We saw with Jack Ma. We're seeing it with Evergrande now. And we see it with the ways in which the Chinese Communist Party, and this is what I wanted to talk about on stream, is starting to promote small enterprises and small businesses that are coming from the soil of the Chinese people to prevent the monopolization and the rise of powerful monopolies like Alibaba and Jack Ma's empire. So they are undermining the power of the billionaires. And this doesn't serve the interests of these capitalists.
We're stopping capitalism by creating more capitalism.
No, well, you have to understand and obey the objective laws of the forces of production and the social revolutions.
I hate to break it to you.
So it's no longer capitalism.
But the productive forces have already been built up, and they were probably built up about 20 years ago.
How's that?
They literally physically existed.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just an NEP without end. That's
no,
kind
it's
of why
not.
they
It's
keep
not an
this.
NEP. An NEP was a implicit form of sharing political power with the kulaks in the countryside, with whom the Soviet state did not have the power to alter or change or eliminate. They had to form a negotiation and deal with them.
Yes, and exactly where are the kulaks now?
Yeah, because the Soviet state, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, or the
Came in and
Bolshevik Party,
stopped them the way that they were
because
supposed
they
to.
took power. They took complete economic power and political power of the country, just like
Yeah, and I
China
would
did.
criticize them for even
China
giving them
never
that.
relented its power, though. The Communist Party in China never relented its power. It never gave shared power with anyone. The new class exists on the good graces of the Communist Party. They can fall just in the same way.
And you know they're not necessary, right?
Woo.
Those capitalists are not necessary.
Up until this point, they have been.
For a period, I would agree, yes, but that probably ended about 20 years ago.
Well, you know more than the 1.4 billion Chinese people, I'm sure.
Oh, no, I'm not saying I know better than them.
You know more. You know more than all of their Marxists, all of their philosophers, all of their academics, all of their researchers, all of their
all of their
scholars, and all of their experts, and all of their
everything that
leaders.
the party tells
You
them
know
to
more
say.
than all of them. You know what's best for China more than them.
I know whether or not the productive forces existed. Yes, I
In a
can
way
tell.
that they are just blind to for some reason.
No, they're not blind to it. They just don't care.
Why don't they care? Because they're not as pure as you are?
No, because they're not doing Marxism.
And you are.
Oh, I don't see what that one has to do with the other.
Well, you're saying they're not doing Marxism. What does it mean to do Marxism? Are you doing it? Who's doing it?
Well, you could take what the Soviet Union was doing.
The Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore because it collapsed because of what it was doing.
No, it collapsed politically from internal. It didn't collapse
Also economically.
No.
So the Brezhnev stagnation never happened.
That was from capitalist reforms.
The Kosygin reforms were a response to the stagnation.
I'm sorry, but no, capitalist reforms are what what damaged the.
Were those happen under Khrushchev, or when did they happen?
I'm not exactly. You're
talking about the Kosygin reforms. Those were a response to the stagnation.
And your point would be capitalist reforms still destroyed everything.
I think you're talking about Gorbachev's reforms, which were disastrous, but those came long after the economic crisis of Soviet central planning.
Actually, there was a problem with Soviet central planning because they were basically trying to do too much. And that what they did was they decided, well, we can still compete with the US in terms of standard of living as long as we let, the market come in and do some of that organizing for us, which ultimately turned out to be a mistake.
So what should the Soviet Union have done? Stopped growing and have its economy collapse?
No one advocated for it to stop growing.
So how would it have continued to grow?
Said that.
Do you know the basis of Soviet growth up until that point was in things like steel production, the development of the primary forces of production? There was no light industry to speak of, or very little light industry to speak of. That there was no way the Soviet Union was going to develop a computer industry that was going to rival the West. There was no way the Soviet Union was going to be able.
Computers.
They had computers, but it was so slow compared to the rapid pace of development that was happening in the West.
I'm sorry, that's not true. Soviet computers were actually very good.
I'm not denying that, but their development was very slow compared to the development in the West.
I would disagree with that, and so would Paul Cockshott.
Okay.
So
I don't know what to tell you.
Therefore, abolish economic planning. Do you know what the Feldman?
The Chinese never abolished economic planning.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't.
They did.
No, they
didn't.
They
literally don't plan their economy at all.
The economy's planned to this day.
No, they have a guideline. They don't have a plan. And in fact, I can pull up an article where Z specifically says that it's.
Oh, you mean directly planning the inputs and outputs of production?
Which is what economic planning.
No, it's not.
In a socialist sense, is.
No, that's not necessarily what it means at all.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That is what it is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
It's not when you hand over.
That form of planning is only possible when you can set determinate quotas based on predictable outcomes, which are only things like the basics of the primary sphere of production. When it comes to the light consumer economy, which is the huge driving force of economies of scale now,
So you
you
literally don't know
can't
what
do it that
Department
way.
1 and Department 2 commodities are.
What?
So you don't know what Department 1 and Department 2 commodities are.
Yeah, but the Soviet
That
economy could
completely
not develop
contradicts
light
what you just
industry.
said.
The
Yes,
light
it did.
industry was not developed.
Yes, they did.
No, it wasn't.
I can literally pull out the book that has all
They did
the
not have a
statistics
developed
on
light
that.
industry. There was constant shortages of light industry goods. The
Yeah,
Soviet people's
in the beginning.
the Soviet people's demand for more access to these goods was not being fulfilled.
Yeah, they were demanding more goods, yes.
And the Soviet
And
Union's
not
system.
necessarily the amount of resources existed for it.
So it's about physical. That sounds like a Malthusian argument.
I hate to break it to you and Caleb Maupin, but the world is finite, and the Soviets actually had a finite
So
amount.
you agree
because
with
they weren't invading
you agree
countries
with
like the United States.
so you agree with Malthus and not Marx, if I have you clear.
No, sorry, that's bullshit. You're putting words in my mouth.
But that was
Again.
the Marx said the fundamental driving force of economies was not based on scarcity of resources, but was based on specific modes of production. Malthus was saying that it was based on the scarcity of resources. So you're saying the historical
I didn't say
explanation.
that the Soviet economy was based on scarcity. I said there was.
You're
scarcity
saying the reason why
because
they couldn't.
The world is finite.
I agree. The world is finite, but our ability to interact with the world is infinite.
X amount of steel, iron ore does exist in the world, and I don't know what you're saying. Will interact with it. So
yeah, I know because you don't.
Iron ore?
You're just not very creative or aware of history.
No, I'm sorry.
You know, houses used to be built with mud and dirt, and some still are, right?
I'm sorry. Exactly how is that supposed to make more iron ore?
Well, because you're making.
How is your idealism supposed to make more?
If you
iron
let me
ore?
finish, I can explain.
If you say asteroids, I'm fucking out.
The use for iron ore can be replaced by something else with the refined development of the forces of production. If it eventually we ran out of it, I can't see how we're going to run out of it in any decisive way anytime soon.
Okay, anytime soon. But yes, we will eventually run out of it.
By that time, we will probably have ascended to we will probably have ascended to the 17th dimension or something. Like, that's nowhere near where we are now.
Okay, we replace it with another metal, and then when that metal runs out,
yeah, and that's history.
I'm not.
That's history.
I'm not arguing for degrowth. I don't get what it is that you're.
I just don't think you have You just don't have a correct understanding of history. Is the problem? You're trying to attribute the Soviet. You're trying to attribute the Soviet Union's inability to provide consumer goods for its people on the basis of limited resources. And not its system. It didn't have
infinite resources.
So the problem wasn't the system; it was just they didn't have resources.
Because they didn't go around invading countries and stealing them like the United States and the UK.
But they still had very extensive relations with many trade relations with like the non-aligned countries
yes, but that doesn't guarantee
they couldn't trade. The only trade restrictions that they could possibly face.
Not the same thing as plundering.
Huh?
It's not the same thing as imperialist plunder.
Yeah, what's your point?
So yeah, it's not exactly the same thing. Because they're not going to be able to get as much for the same price because they are giving a fair trade for it. Whereas the United States and other countries were essentially getting it for next to nothing by taking over the countries and controlling them.
That's a really simplistic understanding of how it works.
That's how exploitation works.
Exploitation in the Marxist sense or in the sense of like exploiting vulnerable positions?
Exploiting vulnerable positions of countries. The United States was fleecing them, along with the other imperialist powers, whereas the Soviet Union wasn't. But
it's not really directly about resources, though. In some cases, it was like in the Central American countries like banana republics and stuff. Yeah, I could see what you're saying with that, where they were just taking resources. In many African countries, it's just a matter of taking resources. But the Bretton Woods system was not just a system to funnel resources from third world countries. It was a complete global monetary system
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it
that
was
was
a
about
global
giving
system.
trade advantages to some countries over others to develop industries. It wasn't just
Yes.
about, like, you can't just explain the development of the forces of production at this time purely in the form of the exploitation of resources.
I wasn't doing that.
It's about the flow of
I
global
was saying,
trade and things like that.
yeah, I know, but that's not what I was saying.
But China's opening up allowed it to tap into these foreign markets and access these technologies and develop its own forces of production. The Soviet Union was, in a way, isolated from the world market in this
Yeah,
kind of way.
that reinforces my point.
Yeah, but it wasn't just because of resources. It was also because it didn't have access to the differentiations and the concentration of capital or the forces of production, the methods of production that were existing, not just resources. There was plenty of resources the Soviet Union had access to. The issue was technologies, trade relations, and things like that. There's a pretty
Trade
important
relations, I
distinction.
would agree. You're saying the
And also
Soviets were just
technologies
incompetent?
and forces of
They were
production.
I'm sorry, they were incompetent when it came to technology? Is that
No, they weren't. They did extremely well for what they were able to do when it came to technology. But in terms of, like, other countries could just trade and rapidly share and share technology and build off of each other, so we didn't have to do all that alone, which is really tough.
yeah, that's tough. Again, that
Like, for example, very few countries actually developed these decisive technologies by themselves.
I would agree.
Okay.
I'm not seeing your point.
My point is, explaining all of this in terms of resources just doesn't work. There was a systemic problem.
I would say it was mostly resources.
You would say it was mostly resources?
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be
but
that
it
would be my
wasn't.
okay. Then
It
you
was it was a
disagree.
systemic problem of the actual allocation and organization and distribution of goods.
I'm not denying that there was a problem.
So there was a big systemic problem that was the reason.
Yeah, we agree that there was a systemic problem, but we don't agree necessarily on what it was.
Well, here's why. Because up until this point, the primary driving force of the Soviet Union's growth was developing the primary forces of production. Once this task became complete, the Soviet economy began to stagnate.
Once Department One
Because it
commodities
didn't
were
have an
built up.
economy that could adapt to a modern consumer or postmodern economy, whatever you want to call it. It didn't have a system that could adapt to that.
I would agree on the basis that it was never supposed to be like the United States, where it's just an infinite amount of commodities everywhere for everybody.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
No,
it
know,
couldn't
that's
grow economically.
I'm saying it couldn't. I'm saying it couldn't, and it's
Yeah,
not designed to.
and it couldn't satisfy the needs and wants of its population.
No, it satisfied the needs. It's not. It's the wants that were a different
Well, it
thing.
came to a point where even the needs could no longer be satisfied.
Like what?
During the 80s, there was just shortages of needs, just basic needs.
Yeah,
Couldn't be
actually,
satisfied.
I did a video on that where a Soviet investigative show showed how they were being deliberately wasted. Like he literally had the video of it happening, and
That's
then lost his job the next day.
I don't know what video you're talking about, but
It was a Soviet investigative journalism show called 600 Seconds. He I can't pronounce his name anyway. He did an investigation. He found like trucks and trucks of food that were thrown into the woods, and he videotaped it, did an expose on it, and then lost his job. There's a copy of it on my channel.
okay, that's really mysterious, but I still wouldn't say that this renders
There was
obsolete
a
my
lot of
point.
sabotage.
There probably
justify
was
the crime.
sabotage, but then again, it all comes together. There was also a systemic crisis.
Yeah, I don't deny that there was a crisis. So we done here?
I guess.
Okay.
So we can't come to an agreement about
Oh,
much
I guess we can't.
anything, but yeah, I guess that was it.
Yeah. Okay. See ya.
Okay, bye.